Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Football Manager 2024 series, Help Me Play Chelsea Football Club. And appreciate those of you who are watching this series. It's a bit of a dud, to be perfectly honest. I can't say that I'm shocked that there's not a huge audience to watch a person who, although I do have hundreds of hours in FM around a decade ago, I think FM 2014, I was a pretty serious player of. I've been a much more casual player over the past decade and don't follow soccer or football the same way that I follow American baseball or American football or the NBA or even the NHL. So I do sincerely appreciate all of you who have shared tips with me through the first episode of this series. Definitely have made me a more competent player of the game going forward. And I think it was Stanley Rosella when I started off this series who kind of asked me, so what's your goal with Chelsea? You need to have some kind of vision for what you want to do in FM24. And I feel that that's probably been a struggle because really just was looking for some tips on how to play the game better, how to build a better roster. And I think in terms of tactics, in terms of scouting, I think that I've gotten a lot of help from those of you who have shared comments over the past couple of months. So I do appreciate that and think that those of you who have taken the time to watch have made me a better player. And going forward, if we do another series, I'll try to make it a little more interesting of a story, which hopefully will help generate interest among viewers and also will continue playing the game offline. So hopefully it's more of a two-way street going forward where I'm not just learning from the viewers, but hopefully helping some viewers with tips and strategies that they haven't thought of. But clearly I need to get stronger in the game to be able to do that. But we will finish up with several more episodes this season of Chelsea and then probably move on to something else. Don't want to just abandon the series in the middle of it. So we've got a bit of a tough February ahead of us. Two of our four games are against Man United, who is sixth, just behind us in the table, and then Newcastle, who ranks fourth, just ahead of us in the table. So certainly would hope if we can get 2 wins and a draw out of these 4 games, that's probably a decent result for us. We do have mid-table West Ham and then Burnley near the bottom of the table before we're going to finish up this month. So hopefully there'll be an opportunity for us to get some wins on the pitch. We are now past the transfer window, did not do much of anything exciting there. So we're going to continue scouting. Hopefully we'll be in a position where when we get to the main transfer window after this season, we'll have a really good idea of who we want to add and hopefully have a bigger transfer budget than the $3.3 million that we currently have. We'll probably be looking to move on from some contracts, move on from some players who aren't in our long-term plans if we continue playing it. But at the very least, I would hope that we'll have good scouting knowledge and a good strategy that we would approach the upcoming off-season with. And as we get ready for close to the second half of the season with 23 games under our belts, you can see Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, the top 3 in the Premier League. Newcastle only a few points behind them, then a pretty big gap in the standings to our Chelsea club in 5th, Man United, Bournemouth, and Tottenham. All 3 of those teams just 2 points behind us in the table. And interestingly, as you might expect, you see a pretty high correlation between the teams at the top of the table and the teams that are spending lots of money, with Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, our Chelsea squad Tottenham and Newcastle, the top 7 spenders. Bournemouth, 16th in terms of their spend, is certainly the most efficient of the teams that are at the top of the table at this point. And as great a game as FM is, I'm kind of glad to see that it is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. We have a very mediocre evaluation here for us for the month of January, which is probably fair. But feedback on the tactics, they're happy with the gegenpress style that we've used in recent matches, particularly pleased with the quality of pressing, and they're very concerned, however, with the number of goals conceded when playing this way. Unfortunately, despite that feedback, we've basically been constantly playing our first tactic, which is our vertical tiki-taka tactic in the past several games. So kind of interesting that they have given us the feedback that they're happy with parts of the gegenpress and they're not happy with parts of the gegenpress, even though we have not really actually been playing that style recently. And even though we haven't been playing the gegenpress, it's also kind of interesting that in our feedback for January, they've been concerned with the number of goals that we've been giving up while playing that, because in our 3 Premier League games in the month of January, we only allowed 1 goal total. So even FM24 is not perfect with their AI and the feedback. And some really bad news for our Chelsea squad ahead of a big game against Man United. Marcus Bettinelli, our number 1 goaltender, strained groin. We can get him through the next game, but then he'll be out for 6 to 7 weeks. And unfortunately, Robert Sanchez, our second goaltender, is got a virus. So we are going to be in a pretty difficult situation as far as getting through this game. If I was really focused on maximizing our performance this year, and I guess I should be, even though, as we've talked about, I don't necessarily have a great vision for this club, which is a very important part of FM, I'd probably send Sanchez home so nobody else gets sick. And then realistically, I probably let the physio treat Marcus Bettinelli. And basically what we're doing is we're going to be sacrificing this game against Man United because we are going to the bottom of the barrel in terms of our goaltenders. So this one, I suppose, could get relatively ugly relatively quickly. But hopefully we'll have Sanchez back for our next game. And hopefully we'll have Bettinelli back at some point in early March. But it's certainly going to be a much tougher month of February for us without those 2 goaltenders for the next few weeks. And we've got a bit of potentially good news ahead of the game against Man United. Thiago Silva, who had been looking for a transfer, says that he no longer wants to leave the club. Quite honestly, I'm still not confident if at closing in on 40 years old, we want to bring him back next year. He's certainly been a fine performer for us this year and a very experienced veteran. But with the quality we have, particularly at center defense, I think that moving on from him would allow us to get a bit younger and players that might have a little bit of upside, as opposed to Silva, who at this age and this stage in his career is certainly on the decline, admittedly from very premier levels. So we'll be going with Dore Petrovic at goaltender. He's gotten a fair amount of playing time this year, with Bettinelli being hurt for a good chunk of the year. But certainly on in a perfect world, I'd say that Sanchez followed by Bettinelli are our top two goalies. So if we can get through this game, we'll feel good about things. If we can get a point out of this, that would be a pretty good result on the road against Manchester United. We'll see what happens. And a surprisingly good start here, close to the 10-minute mark. Nkunku, with his first goal of the year, gives us the lead. He's had some injury issues, but back in the starting lineup today. And we take an early 1-0 lead over Chelsea, but it looks like they've got a corner right here, which are against Man U. We're Chelsea. Corner right here for Man U, and they get the equalizer very quickly in the 13th minute. And we've made it to the half, still tied 1-1 with Man United, but as you can see, they've been dominant in terms of shots. We did get a few towards the end of the half there, which made things look not quite as bad on paper, but we've switched to a cautious mode from a balanced mode. We are dominating in possession, but certainly would expect to be behind with the way that we've performed so far. At this point, as I said a few moments ago, if we can get out of here with a point today, I think we would view that as a really good result. Or not a really good result. Certainly you're never going to feel great when all you get is a draw, but on the road against Man United, it's a perfectly acceptable result if we get out of here with 1 point. And it looked like we might have had a brutal goal against us in the 89th minute, but it was disallowed as Man U was offside. So hopefully we can hold on to the draw here, although they're still putting pressure on us here in the final moments of the game. As you can see, looks like they've got a corner coming up here in the 92nd minute. And maybe that will do it with that goal kick coming up here, and we can get out of here with a 1-1 tie. Again, we were with our second or third choice goaltender in Petrovic. And on the road, you can see we kind of went into lockdown mode in the early stages of the second half. They put a ton of pressure on us at the end. But to get outplayed the way we did in terms of the number of shots and the number of shots on target and the expected goals and get out of here with a point is certainly not a bad result for our Chelsea squad. And although Silva said he wasn't looking for a transfer anymore, we did know that he was going to be available on a free at the end of this year, and the transfer window had closed, so perhaps that wasn't any particular aggressive form of reconciliation on his part. He's received an offer to go back to Brazil at the end of this deal. As I said, I think we've got younger and more upside central defenders. So as good and great at times as Silva has been, I think we will likely let his take his time. And if he decides to move on to what he believes are greener pastures, can't dismiss his desire to go home towards the end of his long and storied career. And as we get ready for what we hope will be a victory at home against West Ham, had some issues. Positive news is that Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, both back from international duty, although they both had heavy workloads recently. But over the past week, Trevor Chalobah injured, going to be out 2 to 4 weeks with a twisted ankle, and Noni Madueke going to be out 3 to 6 weeks with some sprained knee ligaments. So we're definitely dealing with some injuries here in the mid to late stages of the season, but this is certainly a game that we would hope and expect to get 3 points out of at home. And at halftime here, it's a 0-0 draw. We've definitely had the better of it with strong possession, completing a lot of our passes, and we've definitely had more shots and more expected goals. We've taken a lot of corners, but it is 0-0. Hopefully, we can generate a bit more offense in the second half. Try to encourage something here with our feedback to our players. We did have to make one substitution in the first half. Took off Raheem Sterling. He got banged up a little bit, so we brought on Armando Broja for him. Hopefully that will pay off eventually. And finally got our first goal here in the 85th minute. A nice corner from Reece James to Benoit Badiashile, and puts us up 1-0 here in the final moments of the game. Hopefully we can see our way out to a victory here, although as I'm trying to fish the mentality to cautious, they of course score a goal in the 92nd minute to equalize things with us. There's an incredible header up there to Christie, and he finished, got it past Petrovic, and after feeling like we were going to get out of this the way we had hoped, not going to be the case, and we were happy to get a point from a draw last week on the road. This week we're pretty disappointed to only get a point. Dominated possession, expected goals, we should have won by a goal, had a lot more shots, and unfortunately that goal in extra time ended up in a tie for us after we got the really nice header from Benoit, the young defenseman, who will be someone who will be getting more playing time in the future if and when Thiago Silva does move on from Chelsea. And Silva has agreed to head back home next year to Brazil. Looks like he signed a 1-year contract, and he will be playing out the string with us here in Chelsea over the rest of this season. With those 2 draws in a row, we're still 5th in the table, well behind Newcastle, and in a pretty tough battle with Tottenham, Man United, and Bournemouth, as well as Aston Villa and Brighton, not too far behind us. So a lot of competition here for the 5th, 6th, and 7th spots in the Premiership this year. The first 4 teams look like they've got a pretty decent gap between them and the rest of the league at this point, as we're now 24, 25 games into the season for everyone in the league. And for our next game, we're going to be on the road at Burnley. They're 17th in the table, so although always difficult to get a W on the road, that would certainly be our goal and expectation today, particularly after 2 straight draws to begin the month of February. Good news, Sanchez is back from the flu, so he will be back, or I guess it was a virus, not the flu, but he will be back in the starting lineup. Petrovic moves back to the bench, so hopefully we'll get a bit more quality out of our goaltender going forward with Sanchez starting. We've kind of moved for the time being Silva out of the starting lineup at 39 years old. Would rather get some younger players, in this case particularly Badiashile, after he scored that goal last time out, a little more regular playing time. We're also going to give the youngster Cole Palmer a start today. Maybe being a little risky, not necessarily putting our best lineup out there. We do need to add one more player because we did also give Moises Caicedo, we agreed to give him the day off. He was a little worn out after he came back from his international duty. We played him in our last game, but we had a conversation with him this past week and decided to give him the day off. And it's been a rather boring first half at Burnley, unfortunately. Not a lot of real good opportunities for either team. Another 0-0 draw at halftime. We're not dominating possession. Hopefully, we can say something to inspire the squad and get a little more in this second half because, as I've talked about, we would definitely love to get 3 points today. And it wasn't pretty, but in the 75th minute, we finally got an own goal for Burnley, but we'll take it to give us the 1-0 lead. Mudryk off of their defenseman Marcao, and it goes in there for a goal for Chelsea, so we're up 1-0 now. And of course, Burnley comes back and scores a goal as we approach the 89th minute here to tie things up. Seems like that constantly happens in Football Manager, even though we had gone to a more balanced approach, and then we had went to a even cautious approach. Maybe we shouldn't have been a little more cautious, but I figured that would result in fewer opportunities for them. We'll see what's going on here as we approach the 93rd minute, whether we can perhaps get something going rather than having another draw. But any tips on how to... And Gnonto comes through with his third goal of the year. We started the youngster today, hoping some playing time would work out well for him, and he does get a goal. If anyone has any tips on how to avoid the dreaded 88th, 89th, 90th minute extra time goals to tie, would love tips in that regard because they do seem to be scored against me at a very high rate, but can't complain too much today as we got the winner in extra time from Gnonto. Took advantage of the own goal by Marcao in the 76th minute. And although it was not the most impressive performance on paper by Chelsea, we did get the 3 points. So a win and 2 draws in our 3 games thus far this month. And we're getting ready for our final game of the month. We do have the home field advantage here today, but we're going up against a strong Newcastle squad. They are 4th in the table, and we are 5th. Hopefully the home advantage will result in a win for us. Would be really nice to get out of this month with another victory and be unbeaten for this month of February. And we've got a penalty kick here in the 43rd minute, still no score. Enzo Fernandez does not come through. Follow up from the corner, though. See if maybe we can get something going. We've had a pretty good game so far. We've been the dominant team, but no score here at halftime. And after being pretty dominant throughout the game, finally got a goal here at the 63rd minute. Raheem Sterling with a nice pass to Reece James, and then James to Conor Gallagher, and no chance to stop that one. So a 1-0 lead here for Chelsea. And we quickly strike back here with a second goal just a few minutes later. Raheem Sterling with a beautiful pass to Nicholas Jackson. They went to the review and said he was not offside. So a 2-0 lead now for Chelsea here. Feeling good about our chances to get out of here with 3 points at this point. And after scoring that second goal to take a 2-0 lead here in the 68th minute, made some substitutions, basically bringing in some fresh defenders since we're basically just looking to hold on to the lead at this time, given that we have had at times some bad luck when we've went to a more cautious tone. I'm a little reticent to do it, but we'll still go to cautious from balanced at this point. Hopefully can maintain the 2-0 margin over the next 20 plus minutes. So when all was said and done, that was a dominant performance by Chelsea. You can see 2-0 victory is pretty much right where we should have been as far as expected goals. 13 shots, 8 on target. took 10 corners over the course of the game. Possession only had a 55-45 advantage, but Conor Gallagher and Nicholas Jackson with the goals, and a good result for Chelsea, and a really good month of February. We're still going to be fifth in the table, but this makes up 3 points on fourth place Newcastle, and an undefeated month with 2 wins, 2 draws, and no losses in the Premier League for the Blues. And as we make it to the end of February, Marcus Bettinelli looks ready to return to full training, so we've definitely weathered the storm at goaltender. Bettinelli certainly could be leaving the team at the end of this year, but since he's been hurt so often, certainly would be good to have him back in the mix to maybe give Sanchez a little pressure at far as who's our starting goaltender. As we know, Petrovic is also in the mix. I think upgrading goaltender is going to be something that hopefully we can focus on in the next transfer window. And before we finish up the episode, we'll finish similar to where we started and check in with our monthly board performance review. B- for the month. Very delighted with our strong support and backing from the players. They're still talking a lot about our Gegenpress style, although we haven't really been playing it at all. Overall, pleased with the positive atmosphere in the locker room. Loved the win against Newcastle. Disappointed in the tie against Everton. Supporters also give us a reasonably favorable view. Again, hard to question with us too much, given that we are undefeated for the month of February, and we've really been on an excellent run over the past 6 weeks or so. We remain fifth in the Premier League table with 48 points. But you can see we've closed the gap a bit on Newcastle, who's in fourth, and Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal have been pulling away from them recently too. We've got a 5-point gap between us and Manchester United, and then you can see Tottenham also has 43 points as Man U does, although Man U's got a game in hand on them. Looks like they'll be playing West Ham shortly, most likely, to get to the 27 games that every other team in the Premier League has at this point. And it certainly hasn't been the most impressive run by Chelsea, but we're undefeated in the Premier League in the calendar year 2024. We've got 3 wins and 4 draws in our 7 Premier League games. The only loss that we experienced was the disappointing 3-2 defeat in the FA Cup to Middlesbrough. But feeling pretty solid about how the team has been performing recently. Only 3 games in the month of March. You can see there's a big break there. I'm assuming that's likely cup action that we're not involved in. So hopefully we can keep the good momentum going against Brighton, Bournemouth, and Nottingham Forest in the month of March. We'll find out exactly how that goes in our next episode. If you've got any thoughts and tips, always helpful for me to hear them. And I do appreciate those of you who are still watching. As I said, this clearly is not a hit series, but I am enjoying playing the game, learning more about it, and especially learning from those of you who have shared tips and tricks with me along the way. And for that, I am very grateful. So until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.